Welcome back, everyone. I think there are a few guests still joining us shortly. I hope you had a good chance to network and reflect on the first part of this morning program. It is now time for me to introduce my colleague who's going to facilitate the next session. She will facilitate the panel on transforming food system. The answer lies beneath our feet. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Umu Kamara, Vice President and Program at IFDC. She has an extensive experience in agricultural research and development across Africa. Please give her a big hand as she takes over. Umu, the floor is yours.
All right, good morning. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I have the next hour or so with you and a brilliant panel to talk about transforming food systems. The answer lies beneath our feet. So you have heard from our leadership panel. What I have before you today are movers and shakers. They're going to share some very triggering thoughts, and we'd like to hear back from you. So without further ado, I would like to start calling them on stage. Dr. Andre Bationo. Andre? I don't know if you can hear me. Andre? Yeah. Okay, so Dr. Andre Bationo is a renowned scientist, soil scientist from Burkina Faso. He's celebrated for his pioneering work in soil fertility management and sustainable agriculture across Africa. He has over 35 years of experience. Please, Andre. Yeah. 35 years of experience and counting, and has contributed extensively to research on integrated soil fertility practices, which have improved crop yields and livelihoods for smallholder farmers. Welcome. Help me welcome Andre. Next, I would like to call on stage Dr. Richard Rukengo. Richard? So Richard is a distinguished research, please. Yeah. He's a distinguished Kenyan agronomist known for his contributions to sustainable agriculture and soil health management in Africa. His career spanned decades. He has led numerous research initiatives focused on improved crop productivity and resilience among smallholder farmers. I would like now to call on stage Dr. Anneke Trux. Anne? In the middle. And Anneke is an accomplished environmental scientist with expertise in climate adaptation, sustainable land management, and rural development. Her career is centered on implementing climate-smart agricultural practices and supporting resilience-building projects for communities affected by climate change across Africa and Asia. Help me welcome her again. And next, Ivo Demers. Yeah. Ivo is an expert in food systems and water management, working to promote sustainable agricultural practices and resource conservation. As a leader of the Wageningen University and Research Global Food and Nutrition Security Program, he has been instrumental in projects aimed at enhancing food security and climate resilience in vulnerable regions. Thank you. Next, I would like to call Mehedi Filali. Mehedi? Mehedi is a key leader at OCP Africa, where he drives initiatives focused on enhancing agricultural productivity and sustainability across the continent. He has a strong background in agribusiness. He has spearheaded programs, many programs that support smallholder farmers with access to quality fertilizer, training, and digital tools to improve crop yields. Welcome, Mehdi. Next up is Josephine Okot. Josephine? Josephine is the founder and managing director of Victoria Seeds, a leading seed company in Uganda dedicated to improving agricultural productivity and food security. As a passionate agripreneur, she has been instrumental in providing quality seeds and training to smallholder farmers, empowering them to increase their yields and resilience. Welcome, Josephine. Last but not least, Nico Janssen. Nico is a strategic leader at the IKEA Foundation, where he focuses on initiatives that create sustainable livelihoods and foster economic resilience in vulnerable communities worldwide. With background in finance and development, he has overseen impactful programs that support climate action, renewable energy access, and agricultural sustainability. Welcome, Nico. So this is our panel, and get ready for interesting discussion. Today, I'm Umu Kamaralemi, but Marina has introduced me, and I'm an agricultural economist from the best university in the world, Michigan State. Yay. There you go. And so this session today will focus on sharing our vision, strategies, and priorities for feeding Africa. You have heard from the leadership panel on about the size of the problem. So in this discussion here, we want to focus on how we get there. What are the impact pathways to get from soil health, agricultural productivity to food security? So we want specific outcomes from this discussion. We don't want the contributions to sit on the shelf. So today you have heard about many initiatives that are upcoming and past initiatives. So specifically, we would like to call for action in this session, and we want our practical recommendations to feed into the the African Union Commission continental discussions, and around Africa Fertilizer and Soil Health, declaration action plans. Godfrey is with us. We are fortunate to have him. And so, Godfrey, we want our ideas, our visions, our strategies, we want you to carry them forward, please. And so we also want them to be fed into the next up to the Malabo Declaration, the Kampala Declaration, as well as the UN Food System Summit in 2025 in Kenya. So a lot of expectations from today. Now, we'll briefly introduce the panelists, and they will introduce themselves, and then we'll go over some questions for them, and then we'll leave a lot of time for Q&A. So, to know our panelists, I wanted them to share one thing with you that you don't know, we don't know, but that would link them to why they are here today, and what's the drive, what's the motivation, why are they food soldiers? So one thing, one lesson, one thing that we can learn about you. So I would like to start with Nico.
Yeah. One thing people don't know about me. I was inspired by a brother of my grandfather who used to work as a missionary priest, actually, in Brazil. And who used to come every summer and be full of stories of how people live in difficult circumstances, but also how innovative and creative people are in those circumstances. And that inspired me a lot to later on in my life go study in Wageningen University. Let's not start a competition who's the best. Let's work on collaboration instead of competition in the first place. So that was a real inspiration for me to do what I do and what I've always been doing in smallholder farming.
Thank you. Thank you. That is great. Josephine?
What people don't know about me is that one of my hobbies is riding the wild African elephant. And the reason I was inspired to take it seriously is the elephant represents the continent of Africa, so powerful with so much resources. And usually people would fear riding on the elephant, but you see that the resources of Africa can be utilized to make a difference. So I always believe where there is a will, there is a way, and that's why I was one of the first to champion a seed company as a woman. And the reason I called it Victoria is everybody discouraged me that are you crazy or something. And then I just said I'll give the name of a lake. A lake never goes anywhere. And I would wake up every morning saying, I'm a whole lake, I'll always be there. That's why I called it Victoria Seeds.
Mehdi?
Thank you, Umu. It's a very difficult question, by the way. Maybe people don't know that in my educational background, I have no link with agriculture and with agronomy and farmers because I'm an industrial engineer. And I have been working as an industrial engineer, but I came step by step to agriculture, to farmer solution, to on the ground, I would say. And I took this virus of helping and supporting smallholder farmers in Africa, but from the ground. But I have no educational, let's say, background on that, something that I learned on the ground.
Thank you, Mehdi. Yuval?
Yeah, thank you so much, Umu. Actually, there are two things I would like to share, and they're linked. In my early days, I used to be a windsurfer. What has that to do
Can you say that again?
with food? Windsurfing. That's what I did.
Windsurfing.
And by being out on the water, I had to compete and have to fight the challenges of wind and water. So that inspired me to also go to Wageningen and study something about water and soil. But then my first job was in Egypt, talking about water management, improving water management for farmers. But then standing at the bottom of the pyramids of a so long history in ancient society, it also made me humble. Why are we there to figure out how they should do their water management? So that was my also a good lesson in taking a much longer and holistic approach and not look at only the couple of years, 50 years ago, for instance, is still a very short time. There's much more time ahead and also in the past, so let's learn from that.
Great, thank you. Anne?
Yes. I'm a trained biologist. I'm coming rather from the environmental perspective. And that changed radically when one of my very first missions when I was young made me go to the south of Madagascar and visit a refugee camp with people trying to find food there because as by now Madagascar, the south of Madagascar is really drought prone and people suffer from insecurity. And my mission was about biodiversity, but I realized I hadn't anything to offer to those people, neither via biodiversity, neither via throwing all the money I had with you out of the window and giving it to somebody else. So it was a structural issue, and you cannot disconnect food security issues from any environmental or biodiversity intentions.
Thank you for sharing that. Richard? Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Maybe perhaps the senior most citizen of even this republic than most of you, because I can remember when I was born, just before you were born, Kenya was a British colony. And in those days, there used to be a lot of coffee farming. And as you know, Kenya produces a very good coffee. But there were a lot of problems, chemicals. They were using chemicals, Marathion, that was used to spray coffee. And it used to cause a lot of scratching on the farmers. And again, when the residue went to the main grid, the water, animals were not able to drink the water. I used to be a young herdsboy, and the cows would not take water, and I began wondering now, what do we do? So we had to actually go a further distance upstream, where there was less agricultural activities, particularly coffee, with the residue coming back to the water. So I began now wondering, what can I do so that we can alleviate some of those problems? Because I also found that in time, this is also going to affect us. Scratching the skin and also looking for a solution. If animals cannot drink it, can humans drink it? So, aware of that, when I came out of Herosras University, I came with business administration, and I said, well, the next thing I have to do is look for a solution to water. So started on bottled water. And that's how Kevian was born. And we started with bottling water. And up to now, we have continued innovating up to actually expanding to beverages. Again, looking into fruits that are normally grown and not actually preserved for longer, for use when fruits are not in season. So that's what actually drove me into what I do and not to do straight business administration. Thank you.
Great, great. Thank you. Andre?
Good morning, everybody. Myself I was born in Burkina Faso, and now is 42 years. I am struggling to get smallholder farmers in Africa to adopt fertilizer, to adopt technology for plant nutrition. And I was very enthusiastic at the beginning because I can see a huge potential by adopting fertilizer where farmers can get. But more it goes, more I become more and more impatient to see that something you can see the potential is huge, but you ask yourself why adoption is so slow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andre. Thank you, everyone, for sharing these personal stories with us. We really appreciate it, and this is very motivating. So next up, I would like to ask Andre to come set the stage for us. I would like Andre to focus on framing the issue and tell us what is at stake. You know, what is the size of the problem? Can you break it down for us in numbers? We've heard a few this morning. We want to leave you with some numbers to take home and to let you know and that, you know, the size, the problem is huge, but the solutions are there and within our grasp. Andre?
Okay.
I'll sign the slides for you.
Thank you very much, Umu. It's really a great pleasure for me to talk to you about land degradation and food insecurity in Africa. I know the room is full of experts on this topic. In fact, I can see when my mentor, when I finish university, Professor Paul Vlek is in the room, so he was my mentor, so there's a lot of knowledge in the room. But yet, let me try to address the issue. Now, when you look at some numbers, you can see that Africa has 121 million hectares of land degraded. 65% of land in Africa is degraded. But you can see that in Europe, here where we are, is only 25% of the land is degraded. Yes. Now, the first thing we may ask ourselves, what even we mean by land degradation. And by land degradation, we really is the decline in soil fertility, in soil quality. And that is caused by improper use by men, erosion, loss of organic matter, and pollution. This process will result in the loss of soil fertility and its ability to support healthy crops. So land degradation is also result in loss of vegetative cover, ecosystem breakdown, and decline in biodiversity. We used to ask ourselves what are really the cause of land degradation. There are mainly three. The first is really the pressure, human and livestock pressure on the land is one of the main cause of land degradation. The next is really the loss of vegetation. And the third is really the climate change. Climate variability is really one of the main causes of land degradation. Yes. So when we look at Africa, when we talk about the hotspot of land degradation, I think everybody has in mind is the Sahel. I worked myself for 17 years in the Sahel with IFVC in Niger, and we know what we mean by being the hotspot of land degradation. The next highlight is the Ethiopian islands. It's known, it's well documented, but in African Ethiopian island, we are losing 1.5 billion tons of soils every year. And Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, and Zambia, at least 60% of the land there is degraded. So the numbers we are having again is $42 billion in income, and 6 million hectares of productive land are lost every year due to land degradation. Now, when you take the productivity classes of the soils in Africa, as a result, you can see that 55% of the land in Africa is not suitable for crop production, 55. What we call the baseline, what we call prime line, in Africa we have is only 9.6%. And the high potential is 6.7%, but most of the land we are cultivating is considered in terms of productivity classes as 28% is between medium to low potential. In fact, to give some example, for water erosion, scientists documented that for water erosion, mainly when the soil is not covered, we can lose up to 20 tons of land, of soil per year. But if we were able to cover the soil in the same place, we will lose only 1.3 tons. So because of lack of soil cover, is a lot of land is degraded in Africa. Yes. Now, for those who are familiar with Sahel, like me, we are used to see those storm, wind erosion is really a big issue. And scientists already recorded that you can lose up to 60 tons of land per hectare in the Sahel per year, just due to wind erosion. Now, to talk about what is our own interest is really the land degradation due to soil mining. And in fact, our knowledge in terms of soil mining is really coming mainly from Netherlands, from Eric Smalling and his group. So most of the knowledge we accumulate, we have in Israeli, the pioneer is coming from Eric Smalling and his group. And we know that when we talk about the nutrient mining, it means farmers in Africa are taking from the soil more than they are adding to the soil. So they are mining the soil. Year after year, we are just borrowing from the soil. In fact, we borrow from the soil to feed, they borrow from the soil to feed themselves and to feed the rest of the population. And we all know that cannot be sustainable. Just to give you, just already been mentioned that in terms of, because of low use of fertilizer is one of the main causes of nutrient mining, as unfortunately Africa is using presently only 18 kilograms per hectare of NPK, but the world is using 135, so we are using 13% of the global rate. One of the things we know also, when the little fertilizer we are using, when you look the nutrient use efficiency, what 1 kilogram of nutrient will it produce? In Africa, it's also those numbers are still very low. I can tell you, so we have an example of 1 kilo will just produce 4 kilograms of grain, of sorghum or millet or maize. When in Europe, 1 kilogram of nutrient can produce over 40 kilograms of grain. So the nutrient use efficiencies are also very, very low in Africa. And just to give you an example, using the nutrient mining, we know that over a period of 30 years, farmers mine from the soil 660 kilograms of nitrogen, 75 kilograms of P, and 440 kilograms of potassium. So, and it was qualified, but what African farmers are taking from the land, and they are not replacing, is equivalent to $4 billion per year, is what African farmers are borrowing from the land, and they are not replacing. This again, just to amplify this, the main problem we are having, if you take nitrogen as an example, you can see that African farmers are taking from the land 4.4 million tons of nitrogen. But what we are adding is only 0.8 million tons of nitrogen. So you can see the yield gap, all the big gap, just due to nutrient mining, is what we are mining from the soil. Next. So we talk about carbon. We all know, we talk soil health, we know we need the fertilizer for plant nutrition. We need also to maintain the soil organic carbon. Again, we have a big challenge in Africa. Soil, most of the soil are sandy. And we know when the soil are sandy, it's not protected. There's no clay to protect the carbon. So we are having losses, up to 7% of losses of carbon every year on sandy soil. But if we were lucky that we increase the level, the soil has 12% of clay and silt, we will be losing only 2% of carbon. But unfortunately, most of our land are also eroded. Even we have a good level of clay to protect the carbon. When the soil is eroded, you can see we can still lose up to 6% of carbon. So as a result, when we look the yield we can get on station, in African on station by our scientists, and you look the yield farmers are getting, you can see a lot of gap. You can see a lot of gap, and you can see, you would take, for example, the cassava. By the way, I am a cassava farmer also. You can see that farmers produce presently about 8 tons of cassava tuber per hectare. But on my farm, I can produce up to 50 tons of cassava. So you can see that for most of the crop, we can easily increase the yield 5 times if we were adopting integrated soil fertility management approach. Easily is possible to increase the yield of most of the crop 2 to 5 times or more. Now, in fact, for food security, I'm going to be brief because I've been already covered by, we all know that 280 million people in Africa are food insecure, what is about 20% of the population. So, and we know also the most affected hotspot is Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, Nigeria, and the Sahelian countries. Now, I think we have been, all those things are very well known, but you know that agricultural production increased only by 2.5% in Africa, but in Latin America it was 2.9% and 3.5% in Asia. And I think it was mentioned by the director of the AU Commission that in 1990, Africa was importing food for $15 million. But as we know today, we are importing food for $50 billion. So, and this is also very alarming when you know that if we continue to do business as usual, by 2050, Africa will import 87% of the food we are consuming. That is very alarming. Yes. So let me conclude, and we all know that healthy soil is a prerequisite to achieve sustainable food security. And we already mentioned that we need to increase agricultural production by 70% if we want to really, by 2050, if we want to achieve food to feed Africa. Like I was mentioning, the little fertilizer we are using, we are not using it really efficiently. We still need to do a lot to improve what we call the nutrient use efficiency. And all my life, I work on phosphate rock. All over Africa, I was in East Africa, in West Africa, in Southern Africa, and I still see a huge potential. 80% of the soils in Africa are short in phosphorus. But Africa has between 60 to 80% of phosphate rock. I can see the huge potential we are having to replenish the phosphate deficient soil in Africa. Yes. So this is my last slide. Is where I really think is I will think of a very important recommendation. We absolutely need presently to develop national action plan to combat land degradation. Is extremely important, and we, as you know, to combat land degradation worldwide, we need trillions of dollars. We need to spend up to $84 billion annually of dollars, and we all know that we cannot leave that only to the poor farmers in Africa. It will never happen. So we strongly believe that the society has also to be involved. And the society, our government need to really invest to combat land degradation. The same way we are investing to build roads or dams or hospital for the society, we really need to do the same thing to combat land degradation. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Andre, for breaking it down for us. Now we're going to turn over to Ivo and Anne to tell us what success looks like. I mean, we all know the size of the problem. How do we get there? What do you see as the key elements of sustainable food systems? What are impact pathways from soil health restoration to food security? So I'll start with you, Ivo.
Yeah, what does success look like? I think being here online and together with you is already a success. So that's a first congratulation to put through conferences like this the topic on the agenda and to keep it on the agenda. Hence fostering collaboration, education, but also financial instrument and policy instrument like Godfrey also mentioned this morning. But if we talk about food security, to me it's also about food and nutrition security. It's not only about food security, it includes healthy diets. Our food systems should also contribute to equitability and obviously to sustainability, including resilience or biodiversity, as already mentioned this morning. And that comes with synergies and trade-offs.
Yeah.
So navigating that food system is peculiar. And there was reflected already a bit also to the Dutch situation, and I think that's globally happening. Farmers are not similar, are not the same, but they are worldwide sometimes in same or similar positions, where they do not have the power to influence the options to buy what they want to buy and to produce what they want to produce. And perhaps the same could be said about consumers. Can you really influence the way farmers grow your food? So it's also about that equitability part of making farmers more important and also bringing consumers into the equations, not only for the diets, but also for the sustainability. Yeah. And that often means also institutional change and behavioral change. So we are not looking only for technical aspects, but also looking at the governance of our food systems, and happily recognized also by the African Union Commission. But to do so successfully, it should be locally driven. And all contexts are specific and come with specific solutions. And for us as Netherlands Food Partnership, I think the food system pathways, which are derived from the Food System Summit in 2021, provide a valuable entry to look at countries where their policies and their goals for food systems are, and to see how also the Netherlands knowledge companies, but also development organizations and public sector can contribute to those local agendas. In order also to improve the choices of farmers and the choices of consumers. Because what we don't want is to increase the dependency on international single relations. We should improve multiple options, increase the diversity, also where do you source your resources in an international perspective. That increases diversity and hence also will contribute to resilience. Then a bit about the Netherlands Food Partnership, how we do that, because it's in our name, partnership, and perhaps it maybe not developed or coined in the Netherlands, but I made a reference to water, and that was also to make clear that where our international guests landed in Schiphol this morning or yesterday, that's below sea level. So we have to unite and have to work close together to keep our feet dry and keep our water quality at par. And that dates back to the Middle Ages. So that's where it's the DNA, it's in the Dutch DNA of working together. So that's also what we do in the Netherlands Food Partnership, supported by the Ministries of Agriculture and also Trade and Development Cooperation, to help build international relations. And to, from locally driven partnerships, contribute with the best solutions, because yes, we learned in the past. So yes, we can share some of the lessons, but there's also lessons to be learned from all over the world. And to give you an example, maybe if you look at water and at salinity, where we, as the Netherlands Food Partnership, launched a partnership on saline water and food partnerships in 2000, I think it was 22 at the COP26 in Glasgow, uniting not only Dutch expertise, but international expertise on saline water and agri-food. And by doing so, we are not only setting salinity on a higher level on the international agendas, where we recently adopted that in the FAO WASAC community, but also made it possible to include it in actual projects on the ground. If we go to Senegal, government of Senegal said, okay, no more onions importing to Senegal unless our own onions run out. So only then it's allowed to import onions, which is good as it helps equitability. But as a supporting program, there was a development from the seed sector, but not only from seed, soil, horticulture experts, but also salinity experts were added there to that project to really cope with the rising salinity levels. So that's why you see multiple levels working together and setting agendas and actually make change happen on the ground. So that's a pathway to success, to link more to water, and this was just one example. Second example is look at sector development. And I know there are a lot of people working also in the seed sector, and IFDC is also working in the seed sector. And there you have the added benefit of really working together not only on soils, but doing that in conjunction with integrated seed sector development. Supported by a Dutch consortium, which is managed by Seed&L, supported by the Netherlands Food Partnership, which is Seed&L, but also really developed into programs in, for instance, Nigeria and Ethiopia. And what does it take? Also their local agendas. Nigeria was a success because it started with a roadmap specifically for Nigeria. What is needed to improve the seed sector in Nigeria. In Ethiopia, it's long-term cooperation, already for 12 years, and just last week, with support of the European Commission, also supported for another period. So that's not only the Dutch, it's really international cooperation to bring seed sector to a higher level. And then last point, from water to sector development, also look at the institutional and governance. Mm-hmm. And there I might stay to Ethiopia, where we were approached by the government of Ethiopia to help to incorporate their externalities in food systems thinking. So environmental, but also social costs, bring that into the decision-making of where to invest in their food systems. So not only looking at the technical aspects, but also really looking at environmental and social effects. And we found the mechanisms we already start using in the Netherlands on true pricing of food that can be used also in Ethiopian context. And that project is really going on now, starting from coffee, but including tomato, including potato, and rice. So it's not only export, it's really also looking at local food. And to leave you with one more thing, so we had water, we had sector development, and looking at institutional change. I think in the next years, we will be looking more at working together and in conjunction with energy. Where you see the World Bank hugely investing in energy programs across Europe now, across Africa. And what shocked me was that sometimes it's promoted to have solar-powered irrigation included in those projects, where that can be beneficial, but as it cuts down on the operational costs, the effects can be detrimental on water levels. So there, I think for the food security sector to really look into the energy sector and how we can cooperate there should be something we will be doing the coming years. Also because 4.3% of international climate funding is going to food systems, where on average 30% of greenhouse gas emissions are coming from the food sector. So there's a really disbalance in investing on our environmental impact from food system, from greenhouse gas reductions. So I think we should step up there, and I think the solution is in energy because there's a lot of investments going to happen.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, Anne. What can you add to that in terms of impact pathways? Yeah.
I would like to do a little bit of storytelling from my professional context. The German Development Cooperation, or the German government, has been investing in transformation of agri-food systems more than 2 billion euros over the past 10 years. And one investment on a global program on soil protection and rehabilitation of 240 million over the past 10 years, invested in improving soils with a clear target of boosting food production in 7 countries, including India, Tunisia, and some countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And that's the background of experience I would like to talk about.
Okay.
So maybe the first thing is, what are we talking about when we spell out agri-food systems? What is it? Very simplified, if you look at the middle line of the picture, you talk about the primary food production and also the marketing of food products. You talk, if you look to the right, about the food, nutrition, and other products. We don't only produce food, but there are also fibers and other things. And their consumption and consumption patterns of consumers. And then, last but not least, we need also to consider the supportive systems. That's to say, education, extension, finances, and also the inputs and services. You cannot talk about agri-food systems if you do not consider supply of seeds, of fertilizers, and whatsoever. So the point is now, we have been doing that forever, producing food. That's the basis of our survival. So why do we need a transformation? The transformation is needed because the way which we produce food, I keep still the slide, okay. the slide before, has a lot of hidden costs. Environment, production systems, health. For example, in Benin, we found out that the cost of wrong pesticide application is 174 euros per household and per year. Indian farmers suffer a lot from wrong pesticide application. It causes death and destruction of families. So it's important. And what we often do not consider,
the hidden costs of agri-food systems, they exceed the market value of all products that we produce. So researchers tell us hidden costs are about 12 trillion euro per year, and that's more than 10% of the global gross domestic product. So it's a problem with a certain size. So our problem is then that we systematically externalize and distort costs, and they have to be indirectly borne, because somebody, either we or future generations, have to bear these costs. So there is a need for transformation in order to offset these costs. And also researchers tell us that an investment of 200 to 500 billion euros per year would be needed to reduce around 5 to 10 trillion euros of these costs. So it pays off. It's just hidden, and we need to be aware. And it's also a pathway helping to address our SDG goals. Hunger, the Paris Declaration with its 1.5 degrees goal, and if we don't do anything, we are going to fail. So you look at the bottom line, and there you have a couple of triggers that would help to bring food systems to a more sustainable situation. That's to say, providing healthy diets for all, providing environmental health and also resilience. Resilience not only against climate shocks, but also the war of Russia against Ukraine was mentioned. Also, we are dealing with other crises, not just the climate one, and also to have secured prosperity and just livelihoods for all. Soils can play a major role in it. Investing in soil health means innovation. It means also a benefit to environment and climate. Healthy soils are much more resilient against climate change. They are healthy soils, or soils in general, they are the biggest carbon stores after worldwide after the oceans. So we need them. And also at the policy level, I think there is a lot that is related to soils. Now let's get to practice a little bit about the program I've been talking you to. The next slide, this slide that you see, just highlights who should be enrolled in transformation. It's not just an issue of conventional farmers or of smallholders or of indigenous. All farming systems, and we need to be conscious that we have very different farming systems, need to be enrolled, but pathways for them, they are different. So their needs are different. Next, please. So what you see here is some conclusions on a stepwise approach of the program we have been running over the past 10 years. The target is to rehabilitate close to 1 million hectares and to provide food security for 3 million people, and I think we are close to that target. So, what has been the conclusion on how to organize this pathway? So, the first point is start from existing problems. Often we talk about blunt fertilizer recommendations, but they don't help a lot when you talk about food productions. Consider really what's the problem of the dominant farming systems that you are faced at. Is it a lack of nutrients? Are there specific nutrient deficit? Is it a soil? Is it a lack of soil organic carbon? Is it an overuse? Acidity? Is it land governance? Is it labor? So start where you find the problems. So the first steps, what we find out is try to figure out the quick wins and to increase also the farm biomass. Why quick wins? Transformation for farmers, especially smallholders, means risk. Change is risk. And I think Geoffrey underlined we cannot oblige farmers to take major risks if they work on 1 or 2 hectares. So try to find solutions with an immediate benefit. One example from the highlands of Ethiopia, major problem is soil acidity, very low pH, and that fertilizer is available, but low pH hampers the uptake of fertilizers, so you will lose your investment on fertilizers up to 45%. It's just money thrown away. So the beauty in the quick fix was to start with liming soils to bring them back to neutral acidity, and then to build on integrated soil fertility management that includes watch about quality seeds, go for green manure, go for more farm costs, recycle the resources that you have on the farm, and mix organic and inorganic fertilizers. So, and that has led us partially to yield increases of more than 70%. Farmers having quit first wheat, then maize production, and then stepped out of farming production, gradually came back to that. So then, if you advance, if you gain knowledge, if you gain also trust of farmers in their ability to cope and to face the problems they had, you need to start to think in systems. Because it's not only to change some practices, but you need to rethink really to the improvement of resource use efficiency. And there we need to address often forgotten elements. For example, if you talk about soil health, you need to think about mechanization. Farmers going from maybe 1.5 hectare to more hectares, or facing climate change, they need small-scale mechanization because they cannot cope anymore given labor constraints with the workload they have to do. So think about appropriate mechanization. Often we don't look at land governance. If you're a Kenyan woman farmer and you want to invest in agroecology because you're convinced it will boost your farm production, your problem might be you have a leasehold and your landlord will take the land away after 2 years when seeing the effect of what you're doing. So look at the land governance. Another thing is look at business models. You are a farmer and you're convinced about crop rotation, but what about not finding seeds on the pulses you need for crop rotation and enhanced nitrogen application to your farms? Yeah. So Andre told us about the huge loss of nitrogen that we face. And then you've got a problem. So this is a lot of technical solutions. But where does transformation start? A technical solution is not yet a transformation. Transformation starts when you achieve changes at scale. Mm-hmm. In Ethiopia, we achieved with ISFM and liming a 42% yield increase at an average. And that means you can get up to 2 tons per hectare more grains. If you look at systems, that will mean you can get in Ethiopia 8 million tons a year, and that can feed 36 million people. And that's where transformation starts. We discussed also about domestic resources and alternative resources. Ivo, you mentioned that. Diversify, be less dependent on external resources. One of the resources, for example, Ethiopia has is cow urine. It can produce urea, a major nitrogen resource, and the potential is twice as that what Ethiopia imports every year in terms of urea at a cost of 320 million euro. Huge potential. We talked also about phosphate, and also a country such as Ethiopia has a huge potential, for example, from bone char, a major input that can provide an input on phosphorus, and it can have also a value, a market value of $300 million per year. So a major potential for transformation. And last but not least, we have been working also, and that's one of the challenges of the Nairobi Declaration, we have been working together in a coalition of the willing on fertilizer efficiency. If you get from blunt fertilizer recommendations to site-specific recommendations based on proper soil data, you can save up, and that was shown by trials, 40% of your fertilizer. So it means lower or at least not increased investment for farmers and governments, while at the same time enhancing the production. So let me come up with a couple of lessons learned that we have. So the first lesson from the whole program has been try to reduce complexity. Transformation starts with quick wins. If we face farmers with very complex recommendations on agroecology or ISFN, we might fail. So start easy. The second lesson would be transformation is a very knowledge-intensive pathway. So you need to invest in capacity development. Capacity development, also based on extension, costs a lot of money. To get down to the last mile is very resource intensive. So in a country such as Benin, where we have boosted 60% yield increase with agroecological methods, the beauty was to find multiplication structures in the extension where we could reach more farmers than before. And that's a mix of digital means, of good extension, of getting farmers into a system of farmer-to-farmer support and extension in order to get your cost a bit down. The next thing is investment in soil health really pays off. So I already gave you quite a couple of numbers. Just to highlight one, liming in Ethiopia will cost a lot of money. It might cost to treat 4 million hectares, $1.6 billion, but the gain of it will be 30 million. So these investments, they really pay off. Next point might be think transformation as a process. It's not a plan, it's really a process. And the Nairobi Declaration addresses, and that was really a huge gain, fertilizer and soil health at a time. But a learning also for the implementation of the Nairobi Declaration might be we should look a little bit more into the farming systems and farming practices, because in practice I see a certain turn to the fertilizer input. Match it rather with thinking about agronomic practices. We will be more efficient and lower the challenge. And the next point also, we need to think a little bit more in processes, not just in plans. Plans don't work. It's a process where you need to consider what's your milestone, what's the capacity, and the role of the different stakeholders that are involved. and what can be the real performance in a given period.
Okay.
And
I have to stop you soon, man.
yes, and then think better big than perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Fantastic. So next I'll call on Josephine and Richard, but let me start with Richard, Josephine. You are both from the private sector, and this morning we touched a little bit about the role of the public sector, public goods, market inefficiencies. What do you see as a role of the public sector to improve the business climate for the private sector? The private sector has a big role to play. So, Richard.
Thank you very much. For me, I think, yes, private sector has a big role to play in, let's say, soil improvement and food, self-security. But I think we need to move a little bit from, let's say, talking purely agriculture, fertilizer, and look, you cannot produce quality food without water. Most of the rivers and water sources in Africa are drying. And therefore, it's good to note that Africa is no longer reliable on rainfall. It is, rain-fed agriculture. And therefore, water storage and water harvesting is key and is important. You cannot, farm, though you have quality seeds and you don't have quality water or water, you will not be able to grow anything. And therefore, we have to ensure that Africa, sort of goes into a system of damming and collecting water when the rains come. Sometimes rain come, they wash away, they go away, then you're left with no water at all. I'm told a lot of rivers, especially in Zimbabwe now, they were telling me Victoria Falls is completely dry. Now, farmers cannot be able to grow anything without water, and therefore to harvest water is key. Where we do that, water harvesting, soil testing is important and must always be done. And anyway, needless to say about Zimbabwe, because even in Kenya, we are suffering from the same. It is the time that Mother Nature is actually out to punish us for what we have not done. We have to go into serious tree, planting, and, sort of a rural afforestation can be gained by actually even planting fruit trees like avocado, like mango, like, cashew nut. All these things will increase food nutrition and also be used as, forest cover. Well, still we are at that, and as we look at the methods of, farming in Africa, most of the farmers, because now we are small scale, we are no longer large scale, and therefore we depend on those small scale. So rotation is important, but there was a question, what will he do if he left land to sort of rest for a time? So we have to actually adapt more methods, and some of them, because they are mixed farmers, some of them will have a cow, they'll have goats, they'll have chicken, they'll have something else in the same farm, which is maybe 1.5 acres to 2.5 acres, which is the general. So the real thing that actually, asks them is also food storage. You don't have food storage, therefore, when there is, food in abundance, everything goes to the market for sale. And when it goes, there's nothing that is left in their strategic reserves. Mm-hmm. So we need to also, as private sector, invest, or as investors, invest on storage and mechanization of agriculture. You cannot expect somebody to use the old traditional method, using a hoe to sort of perhaps even dig 5 acres, it will take them almost forever before they can finish. So simple implements that are for use to mechanize agriculture would be vital and necessary. And well, also, we look at what resources are available locally to facilitate maybe branding of fertilizers or production of some raw materials good for fertilizer, for soil. So therefore, it is good for us to realize that even though we could have very good policies, sometimes policies are not implemented to the letter. Our case is, for instance, in Kenya, we have to fight against the home developers who will offer farmers a lot of money so that they can build either gated community inside some kind of land, areas. This calls for policy, sticking to the policy, to the letter, to ensure that the available land for production does not go to home developers. Naturally, when they find a farmer with 5 acres, they can put a lot of units there. They offer a lot of money. But the end result is that, again, we continue either looking for new areas to grow, or the farmer ends up now not growing, and the new settlers in that area will require food. So importation of food, again, becomes more and more relevant because of maybe not sticking to land policy. So what must we all do is to ensure that whenever there is an opportunity, like damming, coming with implements and equipment that are suitable for soil improvement or agricultural improvement, those of us that are from any part, and especially you Europeans, who have this kind of equipment should actually think of local production whereby they can be used into agriculture to improve agriculture and ensure that there is food security becomes a reality. It's good to notice that according to the survey that was done in Kenya by NFSCP, has increased fertilizer access from 29 to 67 in 1 year, March 23 to 24, helping 2 out of 3 farmers, mostly in vulnerable communities, and afford essential inputs. That is a CBK, Central Bank of Kenya, 2024. Subsidies have significantly reduced the cost and have enhanced productivity and proven soil, carbon content. However, the gap is the current subsidy design lacks crop-specific and soil-specific targeting, limiting widespread fertilizer adoption. And even though the government, especially in Kenya, comes with a fertilizer sort of subsidy, at times the advice for quality or for the specific type of fertilizer for a specific crop is important. And therefore, what you said about IARA having this system, good for, sort of, maybe, shall I call it remote sensing, and knowing about the various soils and what is suitable for what, it would be essential to advise these small-scale farmers. It's good also to realize that Kenya has now devolved government. There are 47 counties, and with 47 counties, each of them is autonomous. So they have to do whatever they are supposed to do in terms of agriculture, in terms of fisheries, in terms of forestry cover, in terms of all whatever they want to do. They are free and they are left free to do that. And therefore to do so, those of us who are able to advise the various, county government on what to do would be a welcome move for us to move more towards self-sufficient and able to actually grow and have something to spare for others who are more vulnerable. So, like I said, the soil testing and other things are important. We got to look at the balanced tariffs to support the local markets and input access. The government have got also to look into this and not have some what you call prohibitive duties and other things for agricultural input. It is important that they get removed or they get perhaps reduced to a minimum level to ensure that agricultural gets first priority. I think in the past days, agriculture has been taken as just for food subsistence to the Africans. But now it is important, and it is important for us to be self-reliant so that we are not dependent. We've been taught by COVID. We've been taught by these wars that are going on in various areas that it is important for Africa now also to be able to produce enough to feed itself, and in times of such calamities, they are able to export to Europe. We do a lot of export of flowers. We do a lot of export of horticultural products. And with that, again, it's good for us to work together so that we do not use wrong chemicals. We do not use chemicals that are not suitable. I told you how I went into the industry that I am in because of animals totally refusing to drink water, then was forced to go into it. After that, it became an offshoot of the fruit production. We deal with small-scale farmers, up to 3,600 in number, and we produce up to 200 tons of fruit concentrate when the fruit is in season per day. So with this one, we need committed farmers. We need farmers who are able to get all the implements, get water, otherwise the industry would be in trouble. So it is important for us to get market access, to get easy funding for the farmers so that they also they take farming as a business. But when they don't take farming as a business, it is very easy for them to get attraction from elsewhere, abandon agriculture, and then we start suffering on food.
Yeah, Richard, can you conclude?
All right. In conclusion,
Yes.
I think I would say we should promote local production of raw materials suitable for local fertilizer production, promote also agriculture-based compost, manure, and local fertilizer production will be actually maybe key to this. We may say it's expensive, it's whatever it is, but I think some of the raw materials will be available so branding can become a reality. So again, removal of duties and levies on all agricultural raw materials will be essential for us to actually have a lasting solution towards food security. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, Josephine, I'll give you 5 minutes because we don't want to lose Mehdi. And you have a lot of questions for Mehdi, I know. So, and then we also have Nico. So, please.
I'll manage in 5 minutes. You can just start with the slide.
Okay.
Yeah. I requested the moderator to bring this slide because you asked as private sector. The AAU describes us SMEs as the last mile of delivery.
Yeah.
So as seed companies getting seed, but now crop protection products, including fertilizer. When you look at that picture, and it concerns all of you, that was 2007. Can you, the first slide? Yeah, and if you look at that slide, we were speaking about transformation of African agriculture. It was in Oslo. I see the development partner there, NORAD, and then there was CADAP, and of course, at that time, we were taken as the youth of Africa, the promise of the future. And that was 2007. And each of us have gathered here, and I think that's why in the next slide I said, are we walking the talk or just talking during the walk? I think it concerns each of us. Why do I say? I go back to Andre. If you look at the summary that Andre brought out in terms of food import bill, I don't even want to go into it. He actually says things are getting worse. For me, I'll just only emphasize on the diet for a healthy life. Because in 2007, when we were speaking about transformation, only 10% of the African population was undernourished. But FAO statistics of 2022 shows that it has now more than doubled. It's at 27%. So as Andre says, when you have a population, 27%, that is not well nourished, they are going to be unproductive, and even the children, you are destroying your future indirectly. Those children will be stunted. So to me, that is actually something that concerns all of us. So when we come to this forum, if 2007 and now, we are really in reverse gear, should we collectively continue to talk, or perhaps we should start doing things differently? It's just, I myself was also forced to meditate on it, because if things are reversing and we are talking, then I think our talk is not producing an outcome. Perhaps today, I commend IFDC, our talk should produce an outcome. Okay, so you gave me only 5 minutes. We go to the next slide now. So as private sector, I think just one, if we are the last mile of delivery, we should replicate what has already worked. In seed, we harmonize our seed policies and regulations. So we were not working as silos in countries. East African communities, we harmonize, SADC harmonize, I think West Africa. So it's very easy to move seed within the continent. In fact, as I speak, I think 3 weeks ago, we got a seed order from Angola for pasture seed. So it's very easy. All you need to do is you know that if I have the certification label, it is accepted the other side, because we harmonize that. But in the context of fertilizer, we are still all working in our silos. Each country, we have our own policies. So it makes it challenging, because it should be an opportunity. Yeah. And we have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area that should help us to trade. But although I was excited about trade with Angola, normally ACFT said we should trade in our own currencies. So that thing is still not working, because the Angolans went to their central bank and said, can we send Kwanza to Uganda shillings? And no, they had to wait for dollars, and it's ridiculous, because the regulators can ensure that works. So I think that is an opportunity that if it is addressed, I see that many countries have one, Uganda, Rwanda, we just have one blending company. It means there's an opportunity to capitalize on that so that farmers can have access. Then the second one I mentioned is, of course, I would perhaps first speak about the human capital, then I'll go to the value chain. So it's, if we are the last mile of delivery, we don't just walk with the fertilizer and dump it there. The farmers need knowledge to empower them. But the present extension, from my own experience, it's like 40 years knowledge. That is what they are using. And the truth is, when I organize farmer field days, many times, not always, the farmers are the ones who begin teaching the extension officer. That is the truth. And it's not their fault, because you see, they have knowledge that is knowledge of 30 years ago of how to do production before climate change came in, before the fall armyworm came in. So it's not possible if they are not taken for refresher courses, so they can't know. So seriously, that gap has to be addressed. And like I mentioned, the meeting of 17 years ago, I've gone to many forums addressing that human capital gap needs engaging the Ministry of Education. These little kids, primary level, secondary level, tertiary level, they need to know and understand what has changed, what is different. Because the extension officers now, if you ask, they just know the monocrop and apply DAP. They cannot really help the farmer say, fine, why don't you intercrop with cowpea or with soya bean or with lab. They don't have that. They were not trained to do that. So that's a very big gap. And until we engage the Ministry of Education, I think that will not work. And of course, it cannot just be the knowledge. Also, it has to go with digital information so that farmers can have that information in a timely manner. And my time is almost over. Then, for us to push the fertilizer like seed, there has to be an attractive output market for the farmer. We can talk, and another 20 years come, and I will not even be there, the next generation of youth, and we will still. It's important that there is the public sector, as you say, there has to be an investment in the value chains. Because in the context of Uganda, the fertilizers that are sold go to the sugar industry, tea industry that was developed for the last 50 years from pre-independence. So that is the guarantee. Maize, as of now, after the Ukraine war, fertilizer cost is 25% per acre. I don't need to give you the breakdown. That is too high if you're a farmer, 25% just fertilizer. When you add other herbicides, harvesting, weeding, all that, but fertilizer, that is too high. So what has happened, farmers are not, it's true they buy our hybrid seeds, but they don't apply fertilizer. So that cost is obviously too high. So if we really want farmers to invest in fertilizer and restore the soil health, it is something that must be done in, I would call, public-private partnership to ensure that we do not just sell raw products, but we add value. I actually did some check, because right now, you know, Brazil, because of the drought, the price of coffee is a boom in Uganda. And it's great because the market is high. But when I checked, the farm gate price in Uganda is 3.75 euros of coffee. But here actually in Amsterdam, if in a supermarket, Nescafe Gold, it's 44.95 euros per kilogram. So it means the farmer gets 8% of that value chain. Try to be that farmer. You are down there getting 8%. Would you invest in that soil? For what? And even the ones that with not so much added value, I think there is a brand called Ili Classico, 100% Arabica. These brands should be branded. That's where public sector comes to, as a product, whether it's from Uganda or Rwanda, it has to be, they have to be supported to get their brand in the European markets because of the regulations. So that brand of coffee is just roasted Arabica. It is 30.76, which is still around only 12%. So if we want to add value, if we want farmers to invest, and that is from my experience, what you really want the market to grow, there has to be value addition on the continent of Africa, and this farm gate price cannot be less. A farmer cannot make less than 15 to 20% of that pyramid. If we can reach that level, then I think it will work. So allow me the last one.
No, the last question, I'll ask Mehdi that. Your $1 million question.
Okay, the $1 million
Yeah,
question.
let me ask Mehdi that.
Yeah, because it's an opportunity that has puzzled me. Why are we exporting and we are struggling to import?
Mehdi, on top of your question here, you need to answer Josephine's question, $1 million question. And that is, what happens to the 30 million tons of mineral fertilizer produced on the continent?
Perfect, thank you. Thank you, Umu. First, I would like to congratulate IFDC for the organization of this event and for the 50 years of action and bringing impact and concrete projects especially on the continent. And also, I wish at least 50 other years or even more of action on the continent to IFDC. So to answer to your question, what is healthy soil? First, we have to understand how are our soils. So we have to understand their needs of our soils, their cycles, their components of health. And to do so, we have to leverage on the science and on the technology that is available today. As you know, OCP Group, as African company, we have our headquarters in the northwest of Africa in Morocco. We have especially for the African continent, we have specially involved and committed to support at our level the agri-food transformation, also as a major player on phosphate fertilizer industry. From our hand, we have been investing heavily in the digital soil mapping, as we have invested with our partners, and one of our partners is ISRIC from Wageningen University. We are also working with UM6P, University Mohammed VI Polytechnic in Bangui, that is now a leading university in Africa. So we have been working to develop 50 million hectares of digital soil mapping, first to understand the needs of our soils. To empower that also, we have many projects on R&D in more than 10 countries with our partners like IFDC, but also the local research institutes and universities to develop some solutions that are going to tackle the salinity of soils, the acidity of soils, to improve the organic content of soils, and to develop also biofertilizers to have, let's say, a more healthy and integrated soil health management system. Those projects are developing solutions that are targeting 90 million hectares for African soil. So this is major projects, and we have to work also with all the partners how to make this academic, let's say, work on the ground by developing also financing mechanism and all the actions to put this result really on the ground. After understanding the needs of soils, we have to work on efficient fertilization. This is when it comes to the 4R, nutrient stewardship. And we strongly believe that knowing the needs of each soil, we should bring each nutrient with the right source, with the right rate, with the right time and location. It's not about blanket utilization of one standard fertilizer. We should be very precise and efficient to bring what's needed for soil and for the crops to have an efficient fertilization. By doing so, we can improve the yield by 30 to 40% in some crops like maize, rice, potato, teff in Ethiopia, and in all the countries. If we combine with integrated soil health management approach, we have some results that can reach until 200% of yield increase. So it's very important to have this comprehensive work between integrated soil health management, and customization and efficient fertilization through the 4R. And one important element we are investing a lot also on it with our partners is the capacity building of farmers, is the demo plot. So in terms of training, for example, we did more than 3.5 million training of farmers. And also, let's say, the demonstration plots to demonstrate, you know, farmer all over the world is very pragmatic. You can tell him the best story. If he don't see with his eyes, he will not believe, everywhere. So we have to do this work on demonstration on the ground with those farmers, with those communities, step by step. It's a heavy work, but it should be done. And as OCP, we have been investing in 10,000 demo plots through all over the continent with our partners. Also, what I can say is that now we have a plan. We have the chance to have a plan. We have the plan of African Union, the 10-year action plan to develop the fertilizer and soil health. It's a major achievement because we have been going from Abuja, where it was just a target of nutrients, 50 kg per hectare, to now a plan that is much more comprehensive, that includes the soil health, that includes the productivity, that includes the extension services. For example, in the declaration of Nairobi, we say that we have to triple the domestic production of organic and inorganic fertilizers. We have also to, in 10 years, we have also to make 70% of the farmers, smallholder farmer, have access to extension services, to recommendation. We have also to reverse land degradation and to make 30% rehabilitate 30% of our agricultural lands. So this is very important objectives. There is a plan at African level, and when it's under, let's say, declination into different regions and country. Now, the needs are huge. If we want to double, as it says in the Nairobi Declaration or the 10-year action plan, if we want to double the crop production, the investment will be huge. Yeah. So we strongly believe that to achieve those goals, we should work in partnership between private, public, DFIs, international organizations in the same way, on the same roadmap, coherently, to achieve those goals. And this is something that is possible, and we have to work on it. At our level, this is illustrated, I think, in the slide, there is some partnerships, because we wanted to come with the concrete actions as the private sector committed. As you said, we should not just talk, we should come with concrete actions. Okay. And this is our objective from the beginning, when we have been working with the colleagues from African Union and the whole ecosystem, IFDC, APNI, and all the organization on this 10-year action plan. So from our side, we have developed some partnerships to support the 10-year action plan at our level. I will highlight with few examples. First one is a major partnership with USAID on space to place. Okay. Because as OCP, as I said, we did and we are doing a lot in this digital soil mapping, but we want to combine our forces with space to place, to combine between this data that we are developing, that is public data, by the way, available at the country level for everyone, and the hyper-localized recommendation of space to place. By doing so, this is a good example of how we can combine our forces to bring this data at the farmer level with hyper-localized recommendation. So this is the first one. And it has been launched through the signature during the May this year with our chairman and the administrator of USAID in Benguir at UM6P. Second partnership, major partnership, where we have been launching is the partnership with the World Bank on different initiatives. First one is the development of the fertilizer and soil health hub for West Africa and Sahel that is in Ibadan, hosted at IKEA. We are working also with IFDC, that is a major partner on that, and APNI and UM6P. This hub is a part of the Lomé Declaration that is that came to enforce the implementation of the 10-year action plan, and it's in charge of coordinating this effort in the world region of ECOWAS. So ECOWAS, this is the major partner of this initiative, and the Sahel.
Okay.
Second, I will finish in 1 minute.
Okay.
Second initiative with the World Bank, we have signed 4 country packages with Mali, Benin, Togo, and Guinea to develop different kind of initiatives, which is digital soil mapping, geographical information system, farmer service centers, and digital farming schools in all those countries. And we estimate that it will benefit to 25 million farmers and to 10 million hectares by combining our forces as OCP, government, and the World Bank. So this is some major initiative that I wanted to share with you. And I think that to conclude, it is possible. The challenge is big. We can do it if we work, all of us, together in the same way. And we have the solution. Let's say we have the road that is written through this African 10-year action plan that has been developed.
Thank you very much, Mehdi. Thank you.
There was the question. The question
Nico.
about
Yes.
where are going those fertilizers. This is very good questions, because most of the fertilizers should be, let's say, we should encourage and develop the mechanism to make most of the fertilizer benefits first from
Africa.
the continents.
Yeah.
We know that from our side, we have been developing our capacities by 3 million tons this year, and it's especially dedicated to Africa. Now we have to work also on the mechanisms to make it possible, because sometimes if you have, for example, a need into a country, but there is not the financial mechanism to make it on the ground, so we should work on the financial mechanisms. We should work on all the bottlenecks that can be, altogether resolved to make a maximum of this product benefit to the continent. You've spoken about also the Africa Free Trade Zone area, the regional integration, which is very important, which facilitates the trade between those countries, the valorization of local resources. So this is all, actions that are included in the African 10-year action plan.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nico, last but not least, so I was telling you that you were going to close. So you're almost there. So Nico, what are some of the successes that you can share with us in, let's say, 3 minutes?
Thanks, Umu. That's going to be a challenge, and I know I'm standing between you all and lunch, so forgive me and please don't kill me. I wanted to start with a little quiz, actually, so I hope it works.
Let me see if I can.
It's a program we run with customers in IKEA stores.
A fly and a tomato.
Oh my God.
Fly and tomato.
I don't know. They're both annoying.
Compost, maybe?
Usually the fly goes to things that gone bad.
Fly help tomato grow.
Black soldier flies can be used to create nature-friendly fertilizer for crops like tomatoes. I love it.
Oh, really?
Fascinating.
It's a nice idea.
This is very natural fertilizer. I like that.
All right.
So this is one of the things we are working on, and one of our core principles applies to this, which we like to call simplicity. How do we find easy solutions that can be readied and hopefully scaled in the futures? So I wanted to look a bit at innovations in that sense. but also and split it in two. What are farmers innovating and what are businesses innovating? What can farmers do themselves? And a lot of that is actually revaluing indigenous knowledge. We all talk about mulch, we all talk about things that are necessary, which have actually disappeared from our cropping system. So how can we bring them back? And Andre mentioned it, that the export and loss of biomass and nutrients is ginormous. In June, I was in Arusha on the waste belt. 70% of what comes into an urban waste belt is organic waste. We just throw it away. So it's just nutrients being literally thrown away. So how can we do that? How can we improve that? How can we improve things like vermicomposting, which are just even very low labor demanding, but very high in results. So farmers can increase their self-reliance, their resilience by not depending on the market themselves directly. But also what are SMEs in East Africa doing? We're doing these programs in Ethiopia, in Rwanda, in Kenya, and Uganda. For instance, biochar. Everybody throws rice husk away, in a way. It's just burnt for nothing. You can also make biochar out of it, which is an extreme good product to put back in your soils, to hold your carbon in your soils. It's hardly happening. It's hardly being commercialized, unfortunately. Organic fertilizers and more. There you have, on the left bottom, you have the black soldier flies, which are not just producing a good fertilizer, but actually also good producing a good non-land consuming, non-water consuming animal food out of waste. So we don't need to convert natural lands to agricultural land to grow animal crops. 70% of our lands worldwide are used for animal feeds, are not used to feed us, are used to feed animals. So we have to keep these things in mind to find the holistic solutions necessary. So what are potentials for replication? I think the role of applied research here is very, very important. I think we heard other speakers about that as well. We need demonstrations. We need close to farmer proximity knowledge that they can easily embrace, easily understand, and do themselves. But also the importance of new business models in this, like the organic fertilizers, that are not the same, probably mass businesses like the traditional fertilizers are, but are complementary business models in a local context and with the right public support. I wanted to close with maybe provoking IFDC a bit beyond congratulating them on the 50. One of our key values in IKEA Foundation is renew and improve. So I tried to imagine what different meanings for the four letters IFDC could be, where the I for international is also, and that's very important. It's very important to be international. But also we heard this morning that Africa wants to set up its own sectors of excellence. So how do we bring I from international also to a local context and innovate in the right way for Africa and not come with a one-size-fits-all product anymore in the future? The F of fertilizer, how do we do this by moving not just from a product fertilizer, but from an outcome concept, fertility, soil fertility. We heard people speaking about soil health this morning. I think if we think in outcomes instead of products, we probably come a lot further than we have been over the last decades. But also a second meaning for the F, and this is a long-term one, which is fossil-free. We will have to start thinking in all the long-term investment strategies, how do we do this fossil-free so we don't end up with stranded assets? I think there's beautiful examples already ongoing also on the African continent. With renewable energy, I saw a big green ammonia plant being built in Kenya at the moment. There is a lot going on, and we need to look more at that and see how we leapfrog straight away to those kind of technologies. The D for development, of course, super important to keep developing knowledge and disseminate that in the right way. But also to develop business models for a decarbonized future. Future-proofing that we are talking about today is a decarbonized future-proofing. Carbon back into natural systems, carbon back into soils and above ground vegetation, so we can make up for these nutrient losses and the biomass losses that we're dealing with. And last but not least, the C. I think the C needs to become a lot more to look at the circular economy. How do we go from a linear model of we mine resources, we use them temporarily as fertilizer, and we discard the leftovers, to a much more circular model of how we keep things into circulation. And that is not only our waste that we have from crop losses or others, which are, by the way, extremely high in the world, around 30 to 40%, which is a quarter of all the fertilizer used, actually goes to loss at the moment. But also to look in connection with that to human waste. And here in the Netherlands, for instance, there's very interesting innovations going on, how we filter out nutrients from wastewater plants, from other things, to bring them back into circularity. Because yes, Africa is sitting on one of the largest phosphorus reserves in the world, but they'll be soon depleted as well. And so we have time now still to go circular, which we really, really need to do. Thank you.
All right, so I'm being chased off stage. I would like to thank you all for your contributions, and I would like to invite you to, because I invited a lot of questions. I said, come with your questions, so I know there are a lot of questions from the audience, but I would like to invite us to go to lunch, and then perhaps we can sit in different tables and give an opportunity to some of the audience members who wanted to ask us questions to continue the discussion. Thank you very much for an interesting discussion.